Shabbat shalom. So imagine this. You're leading an organization or a business or a community, and 250 of the people of your team or your staff show up at your workplace, and they're knocking on your office door. You cautiously step out, wondering what's going on, when the apparent ringleader steps forward. Right there in front of an entire 250-person strong squad of people, he challenges your power publicly. "What makes you think you are so special?" he begins. And then he goes on to challenge the hierarchy at work, that not everyone has the same benefits or the same titles or the same responsibilities or the same access. You didn't see it coming. And just like that, you are the target. You are the problem. That's pretty much what happened to Moses this week. Only it wasn't troublemakers on the margins or the periphery that staged the coup. It was the leadership within. It wasn't random people. It was Moses' first cousin, Korach, who initiated the uprising, which made it deeply personal. It wasn't about salaries or bonuses or job titles or even management. Korach's grievances were that Moses and Aaron were raising themselves above the rest of the community. It was one of the greatest rebellions in the Torah. What Korach and his 250 besties were saying wasn't inherently problematic. The entire community is holy, they complained, and God is in our midst. So why do you, Moses and Aaron, raise yourselves above the congregation, above us? It's hard to say, as we read along or listen in, if Korach and his buddies have a point, if their uprising is perhaps warranted. But what we do know for sure is that God is not impressed. In fact, after a showdown of sorts that involved incense on small shovels that were flat, it's clear that Korach is the problem, not Moses. And God makes it crystal clear by instructing Korach and his 250 friends to step outside, and then God causes the earth to open up and swallow every single one of them. It is dramatic and it is clear. Korach's rebellion would not and could not be tolerated. It's a complicated scene. You can easily imagine a revolt like this or a protest happening, because today protests and rallies and revolts seem to be ubiquitous. In fact, compared to most of what we see these days, Korach's rebellion seems quite tame. He's got an issue with the fact that Moses and his brother Aaron have the power and authority of leaders. His words are not particularly hateful, definitely not in comparison to what we see on placards or the things that are being shouted out of mobs these days. So why are they punished by being swallowed up alive in the earth? Dr. Erica Brown, in her book, Leadership in the Wilderness, explains that Korach uses the language of equality to mask his hunger for power, that he wraps personal ambition in spiritual rhetoric. And she says, leadership challenges often happen when someone wants a position without the burdens. Korach didn't want the sleepless nights that Moses had. He didn't want to stand between the people and the golden calf. He was not offering an alternative vision, or better ideas. He just wanted the title and he wanted the power. And so Korach's big mistake was that he was driven by ego, not by ethics. And it is very easy and particularly common then and now for people to dress up their egos in the clothing of principle. But let's go back to the protest. Moses responds to the confrontation by falling on his face. And perhaps that was an act of humility. Or maybe the sudden drop was because he needed to take a beat, pause before reacting. Dr. Erica Brown suggests that Moses understood that what Korach didn't, which was that real leaders aren't the ones who want the power most. They are the ones who understand that power means responsibility, and that responsibility means sacrifice. Moses was not a perfect leader, but he was deeply devoted to his singular goal, to get the Jewish people to the Promised Land. There were times when he was overwhelmed with doubt. There were countless sacrifices that he made every single day, constant conflicts and meltdowns that he had to manage in the midbar, in the wilderness. But Moses never gave up. Pete David, in his book Dedicated, identifies Moses as a long-haul hero, someone who is committed for decades to service, to leaning in even when it's hard and defeating, even when there's no end in sight, and even when the goal may not be within his or her lifetime. Jewish history, we know, is filled with long-haul heroes. There are so many, beginning with those in the Torah, with Moses. Later on, we see those in the book of writings. We see Esther. Later on still, we have leader after leader, from Theodore Herzl all the way on to Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, the chief rabbi of Britain, who spoke about leadership in a beautiful way. At his investiture speech as chief rabbi, he said these words. He said, "I will never give up or relax or despair." What an exquisite promise or pledge. In his words, we are also able to see that the gift of leadership begins with a vision bound by hope and by the daily discipline of thousands of incremental commitments. We live in a world these days that glorifies being the voice, not hearing other voices. We live in a world in which everyone wants their own platform, their own followers, their own placards, their spotlights, and their headlines. We live in a time when rallies and protests and aggressive and challenging behaviors, especially towards authority, is in vogue. Wherever we look, there seem to be many a leadership crisis. That's true in the political world, it's true in the business world, and it's even true in the religious world. Many talented and devoted people are shying away or opting out of leadership positions, not only because leading is hard and it's heavy and it requires sacrifice, but also because the risks are high and because sometimes people think it's just not worth it. And we also have, in addition to a leadership crisis, a followership crisis. People want leaders to say what they want to hear, but not what they need to hear. And in many realms and on many platforms, people are quick to publicly challenge, to stir the troops, to amplify the mistakes, and to separate themselves from their greater teams under the guise of a flag of righteous indignation. The Talmud teaches us a beautiful pasuk, Aseh lecha rav, that we should each make for ourselves a teacher. And we often understand this verse is trying to teach us that every person should have a rabbi or a teacher throughout the course of their lifetimes. But I recently read a different take on this verse, which is beautiful to me. It suggested that Aseh lecha rav means that you need to be someone who can be taught. From Moshe, we learn how to be a leader. But from Korach in this week's Torah portion, we also learn the importance of being a follower, that not everyone is supposed to be a leader at all times and in all ways. Sometimes we need to find the thing that matters most to us and step forward with courage and be willing to devote ourselves wholeheartedly. But much of the time, the holiest act is not stepping forward, but stepping back and being able and willing to listen, to be curious, to learn, to help affirm and strengthen others, to ask questions that are thoughtful and respectful, and to support others even when we don't fully understand or know for certain. The importance of being a good follower is being able to be polite, respectful, to appreciate the humanity in everyone, because we can be the people who don't join Korach's mob. Dr. Erica Brown would write in her magazine, Sapir, just as there are bad leaders, there are also toxic followers. Followers who tear down without building up, who complain without offering solutions, who follow ego and not ethics. And what we see as we look into the world today, and as we learn from the Torah, is that being a good follower and followership matters, and it matters a lot. Because when we create a society that is filled with good followers too, great leaders will be more inclined to step up. And those great people that will be great leaders will be more inclined to run for office, to lead committees, and to do the very hard things that our world so desperately needs. May we be a part of that transformation, and may we live to see such change. Shabbat Shalom.